What is up, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of the Pattison Sports Show. I'm your host, James Scorza, with you, and with me, as always, is a group of companions on this very important Super Bowl parade, hangover, if you can talk about that more than anything like that, alongside Joey Marks and everybody else included, and everybody else, including Frank Finnigan, and I think Pat's going to join us today, but I'm not sure about that. Joey, how are you doing on this fine Saturday morning of the day after a Super Bowl after party, is like what we call it? How you doing on this Saturday, Joe?
Well, hangover is a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hoarse voice, people if me and James start to like crack with our voices, that's
yeah,
perfectly normal. Be lucky that we don't sound like Jason Kelsey like after or during the parade speech of 2017.
right.
But yeah, we're going to cover a lot. There's a lot of celebrating going down from the last 24 hours to the last 7 days.
Yeah, and the one thing we can talk about it too is that it's a parade that actually will probably be going down in the team's history. It's probably one of the best. Before we go into our Shapiro today, like I said, like our show, we have a comment here. Mitch Kowski joins us, says, "Good morning, guys. What's going on, Mitch? The man of the hour, the boss man, joins us on this very important Saturday. Check out Fly Like an Eagle on Fridays now on Hardcore Sports Network as he checks out, talks about everything Philadelphia Eagles. Actually, he did a show yesterday right after the Super Bowl parade, so how about that as well? But, Joe, there's a lot to get to on this very important Saturday, so where do we begin?
Yeah, later on we'll be joined by Frank Finnigan. And Patrick Bernard won't be joining us this week because of snow, and
Oh, okay.
Mother Nature just decides that she's gonna dump little by little. She's not
Yeah,
gonna just do one big dump. But anyhow, speaking of dumps, the Eagles took a dump on the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and we have to kind of go back and take a look at like how and what that experience was like, because we are celebrating. The last time we spoke, we were on the eve of a Super Bowl, and I gotta say, James, we gotta unfold this and unpack this Super Bowl, because there were a lot of us on this show that felt like this was a well enhanced game. Like we
hmm,
we felt like this was a game that was not going to be a sweat, as
right.
as Frank Finnigan would say. Um, I did not think that the Eagles would put the ass whooping on them quite as bad as they did. But here's the other thing: the Eagles have been all year long, kind of overlooked.
Hmm.
They've always been like this from the playoffs to the Super Bowl. They've always been this team that no one wants to give enough respect to, but in the Eagles' perspective, especially in the Super Bowl, we're going to have you put respect on our name.
Right,
And Jalen Hurts was a
right.
big proponent of that, because Jalen had gotten scrutinized a lot, and we'll get to a
Hmm.
little bit of that later on.
Yep,
Because Jalen brings that up at the parade.
right.
Um, so James, I'm going to ask you to start off. And first off, where were you watching the Super Bowl, and what was how can you compare the vibe watching this year's Super Bowl in comparison to watching 2017?
Well, I mean, the difference was in my first year. I mean, the first time when we actually won the Super Bowl, it was a different time. Obviously, I was living down at my own house over at 1606, but now I'm at a new house now, down around where not far away from Broad Street. So it was good to know I was down there for that as well. But um, the difference was between this game and the last game. I think this was because I think the reason why this is a better Super Bowl, because you think about what happened in Super Bowl 52. Obviously, it was against Tom Brady and the greatest of all time, and also it was against probably another a piece of history for Tom Brady to have, and that is to capture his sixth Super Bowl. And it's kind of like that same kind of mentality that the Chiefs were coming in and looking for a three-peat against like Patrick Mahomes was in his prime. But the one thing the one thing that really stuck out to me was this was probably one of the best Super Bowls I can ever remember. Like both sides have looked very like there was both sides looking on the other like looking very very well. The offense looked well. I mean, like Jalen played his backside off so bad. So like he wanted this win so badly just to prove to the doubters that you can't say anything about me anymore because I won the MVP. I'm the Super Bowl MVP, and also I got the team to a Super Bowl, and actually I won the Super Bowl. But with that 17 team, the difference was with 17 is that you lost key injury after key injury. You lost your franchise quarterback, your franchise linebacker, your kicker. You're even like left tackle. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. This team was so. I guess the one thing I was really ecstatic about is that all the players that were on that team back in Brazil on the very first week of the season were all there on this night on that Super Bowl game that we captured our second Super Bowl for the first time in 7 years. And the one thing I was really intrigued about too is that like the team is going to be coming back with a lot of firepower next year too. I mean, this was not just like a one-time thing because back then that team that they had in 2017, I mean, they were a little bit old. Obviously, you had a little bit of players that, I mean, you didn't know what you're going to. I mean, I didn't expect. I mean, the 2017 team. You think about like you only had like LeGarrette won for a year. I mean, Chris Long was retired 2 years later after that. There was a majority.
Ajayi.
What's that?
Jay Ajayi was on a short contract.
Yeah, with his injuries and all that, and that was the same time I think it was right after the Eagles got the Super Bowl. They brought in Michael Bennett too, so
yeah,
around that same kind of spiel about that. But this team, I mean, the way this team has become what they are, I mean, they can probably run it back next year too with the same group of guys if they bring back like Bond and obviously bring back like Mekhi Becton along the way too. I mean, I don't know if Josh Sweat will be coming back, but I would be sure though. Majority of that team will be there again next year if you bring back like Bond and also Mekhi Becton to say the least, Joe.
Well, there's going to be a lot to discuss as far as in the offseason. You know, future shows for us is going to really kind of surround itself around how does Howie juggle the numbers? How does Howie,
right,
bring back some of this group? Mm-hmm. Yes, you have a nucleus, but you have some complementary parts that you are going to have to make tough choices with. And
yeah,
it's not that Howie. I agree. With 2017, there were a lot more mercenaries.
Yeah,
and for this team, it seems like there's more of a core. Mm-hmm. And whether it's, offensively, and you have to applaud, and this is going to go under the radar a lot. You got to applaud Howie for early in the season extending Devonta and extending AJ, and bringing in Saquon for as long as he did. And then the year prior, Jalen Hurts, and then Landon Dickerson, these are all like under the radar at the time deals that in the long haul will pay bigger dividends, and Howie's playing chess while a lot of other teams are playing checkers. Right. And that's just the facts. Where I was watching the Super Bowl this year in comparison to 2000, I watched it at my home. I kind of did it solo this time in comparison to having some friends over. And there was a reason, because honestly, I wanted to kind of lock in to this because it felt like I know it's going to sound corny and but I'm not on the football team per se. I'm not, padded up and on the field. But honestly, after 2022, I felt like, okay, we all have to be locked in because this is redemption. Yes. We have to go out and we have to leave no doubts, leave no stone unturned. We have to leave no question that we belong there and more. Yeah. So I felt like I needed to watch the game on my own. Now, my wife watched it here and there. My daughter watched it here and there. They were running in and out, but I was locked in. And I got to say, James, this is the other corny part. So I'm wearing this hoodie. I got this hoodie for my birthday. It's an Eagles hoodie. It's like a jersey, but it's
Mhm.
got Jalen Hurts and number 1 behind it.
Nice.
I have been wearing this for every game in the playoffs since I've gotten it. And we already know the answer to that. But the
Right.
beginning of the game, I didn't have it on. And the first series that the Eagles played and that bogus offensive pass interference call,
Yeah.
James, I know it sounds really corny, but I'm superstitious. I
Yeah.
I literally saw that. I was like, no,
You gotta take it off.
it's no, I didn't even take it off. I didn't have it on. So I
Oh.
went upstairs and I put it on. No. It's time to gear up. We're not fooling around.
Oh yeah.
It-
Yeah.
Like, no. And James, I put this hoodie on and it was like lockdown. It was
Wow.
like that all of a sudden
How about that?
the page turned and the momentum turned, and I'm like, see, let's go.
Yeah.
And the other part of it in this game in comparison to 2017, and I'm sure every Philadelphia Eagles fan felt this too, is that game in 2017 came down to the last play.
Yes.
To the last play. Our hearts were in our throats until
On the edge
that
of your seat. Yeah.
right, until it was 0-0, and
Yep.
we knew that there was no flag in the end zone for pass interference. So, I remember saying to my friend when he was there in 2017, "Is there a flag? Is there a flag? Is there a flag?" And
Yeah.
he's like, "No, there's no flag. No flag? No flag." And we've hit 0-0s. There's a commentator and announcer. Merle Reese is saying we're Super Bowl champions. I'm still trying to make sure, damn it, did we win it or didn't we? Like, because it was that hard to believe.
Yeah.
This Super Bowl left no doubt. Like, there was no question that this team. Well, and I know people said, well, by halftime when we were up 24-0, I knew.
Yeah.
And we're getting into that, but for me, I wasn't taking any chances.
Yeah.
24-0. I was like, nah, we ain't done.
Yeah.
Keep pounding them into the ground.
Yeah.
Sharks in the water.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Let's do this.
Well, I'll tell you a little superstitious thing that I would do too. So around Christmas time, I got a Brian Dawkins jersey, and I never got a Brian Dawkins jersey, so I actually wore it the first couple weeks of the postseason. I think it was probably that Green Bay game that I finally wore that jersey just to see like how it feels and like what it looks like. And when you know it, right when that I put that jersey on, the opening kickoff, it was a fumble, and I'm thinking like that right there, that's probably why I bought that jersey, because I finally got some good luck in my favor now. Because all these years I had like a. I mean, you think about it, I had like Brian Westbrook and Donovan and Deshaun Jackson and maybe Jeremiah Trotter in between, but I never had a Dawkins jersey ever in my life, and I said, maybe this would be the best time to get a little piece of history here, obviously, because I was saying to myself, I never had a Brian Dawkins jersey, and a buddy of mine was like, wait a minute, you never had a dog ever in your life? And I was like, no, dude, I never had Brian Dawkins. He says, oh, dude, you got to get a Dawkins jersey.
Yeah.
You won't fucking regret. Excuse my French. I mean, you won't regret it. But I was like, yeah, dude. I was like, yeah, man. I mean, it's just that. I mean, the one thing. I mean, when I wore that jersey, I said to myself, okay, I wore this jersey this week. I'm wearing it again next week, and the week after, and the week after. I mean, I even wore it to the parade. But I'll tell you what, right now, that to me was like, that was like my superstitious thing, because like, I mean, even that day of the Super Bowl, like I was just like locked in the whole game. I was like actually like a player. Like I was like so locked in. I was just like waiting for the day to come. I was waiting for that, like for the hours to show up. And even like I was just like preparing myself like from that Rocky 3 movie when it was like there is no tomorrow. And I kept on saying that in my head until like it became such second nature for me. But no, man. I mean, the way they went out and beat the Kansas City was probably a much needed to, especially right on the edge of your teeth, obviously, the last time when the Eagles took on New England, and it was until that last minute, and they hit 0-0s. But the one thing that was even more bittersweet is that it's like it was against Patrick Mahomes, and I mean, beating Patrick Mahomes, and I got to give you credit on that too, Joe, about the piece of history that we beat Vince Lombardi. And that was the only the only NFL championship he lost. Tom Brady not getting his 6th Super Bowl in 17, and now Patrick Mahomes not getting a three-peat. I mean, that's pretty good. That's bold stuff by you, brother.
We stand in the way of other teams feeling like they can climb the mountaintop and
Yeah,
railroad everybody. And
definitely.
the thing is, and it kind of leads me into my next question. I started to think, in the totality of this this season with this team, and I know, like I if Frank comes on, I'm going to pose this question to him because he's older than both of us. But what from your generation to my generation, like I started to analyze, like where does this team, now that they've finished it, like where does this team rank all time in Philadelphia sports team history? Because like
Yeah.
you could think back to the Broad Street Bullies. You could think
Oh yeah.
about the one thing that was mentioned widely this week when that question was brought up was the '83 Sixers. And I
Sure.
and I
Yeah.
get all that. Like I don't remember the Broad Street Bullies because that's before my time. The '83 Sixers, I was only 2 or 3. I mean, I said it to my friend who I grew up with who was at the parade yesterday. I said, you know what? I held my daughter and I said, you know what? Our kids, he has 2 girls with his girlfriend. And I sat there and I said to him, we're all at the parade together. And I sat there and I said, you know, we never got a parade when we were kids. We don't have this experience that these kids are having. Like that we are giving it to them, that the city is giving it to them, the sports
Right.
teams are giving it to them. But
Right.
I can't remember. I mean, '83 would have been the only one that as a kid, but like who's bringing a 2 or 3-year-old kid to a parade? Like
Right.
I don't see that happening.
Yeah, no. So we got a special guest joining us here today. A good friend, Frank Finnigan, also known as the Wisdom. What's going on, Frank? How you doing, buddy?
Good morning, boys. Are we talking about anything special today?
I wonder what we're talking
Um,
about.
I don't know. Nothing special happened in the city yesterday, did it?
No,
I'm not sure. I mean, I guess that.
I went to sleep after our show last week, and I just woke up this morning.
But
as you can see,
Super Bowl champs, man.
there we go.
yes.
There we go.
And like that, we were just talking about it, and I'll touch on the couple of the questions, Frank. So, first, where did you watch this Super Bowl, and how do you compare the vibe of this Super Bowl and when you watched it in comparison to 2017?
In 2017, I was just sitting at home on my lounge chair.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't want to watch with anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to. You know how it is being a Philadelphia fan.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Get your hopes up and then it gets crashed on the rocks. So I just wanted to. I didn't want to be with anyone in 17, and I enjoyed it. I mean, I was with my family, but I didn't want to be out. This time we went to the Woodbriar in Berlin, New Jersey, with a big Super Bowl party. It was a blast. Had a great time. And yeah, it was fun watching the Eagles kick the absolute living shit out of the Kansas City Chiefs. It was amazing.
And you know what, Frank? I said it before you came on, and this show was kind of bucked the system when it came down to other people around the city and what they thought about what was going to happen to the game prior to the game. This show bucked the system, and basically all 3 of us basically said, for the most part, even like Fred and other people, a lot of the people that came on this show, especially last week, said this wasn't going to be a sweat. Like the Eagles were coming to, put a beating down on the Chiefs.
It was heading towards the score that I said. It was heading towards 34-24.
Yeah.
And the last 6 minutes got crazy. They had Sirianni had put a lot of the defensive scrubs in.
Yeah.
And then Mahomes just took advantage of it and had a couple scores.
Well, as I've been told many times, like on this show, there were points that were garbage time points.
Yes, no, they were absolute garbage.
So, I know what the final score was, 40-22, but in my heart of hearts, that game was 40
I
to
agree.
6 because that 6 was the only one that they actually like really had to earn it.
Right.
And then after that, we were like, yeah, there's not enough time. Like,
Well, I mean,
let me
I
get
said last week that I didn't, I thought that the score would not indicate the final score wasn't going to indicate how far apart the game was. I thought all along that the Eagles were going to beat that team because the Eagles are just head and shoulders above that team as far as talent is concerned. They're so much deeper. They were so much more disciplined. They demonstrated that during the playoffs. And I didn't really believe in the Chiefs this year. I thought that they won a lot of games lucky, and you can't go into a superior opponent and play lucky. It just doesn't.
I agree with that.
And
And
a lot of the point spread stuff was based on the myth that Mahomes will find a way to do it, and Reed will outcoach anybody if he's given a week off, and Spags is a good defensive coach, and he's had great success against Fangio coach teams, but the bottom line is that top to bottom, the Eagles have head and shoulders a better roster than Kansas City.
And here's the other part of it. Through that whole, you bring up Spags, you bring up all the what people kind of put in their cap as far as why they were picking the Chiefs. I felt like that game. I felt like Vic Fangio kind of turned the tables around on Spagnuolo.
I can tell you exactly what he did.
Because I felt like with Spags, he's the one that usually frustrates the quarterback. And it looked like Vic kind of frustrated Mahomes.
Well, see, the last time that a Fangio defense faced Kansas City in the playoffs was against Miami. And that time, Fangio blitzed 18 snaps. Okay. And I mean, that's pretty hefty amount of blitzing for Fangio because he doesn't normally blitz.
Right.
So what I think they did was they said, okay, he blitzed 18 times. He's going to blitz again to try and put pressure on Mahomes.
Right.
And that's the way they prepared. They prepared to defend a blitz, and the blitz never came.
And I think Vic, knew that, was aware of that, was like, look, this may be a mistake, but I'm going to stay true. And I think his players, his front four, were like, no, we got you, coach. Don't worry about it. Don't send anybody else.
Yeah, but I mean, like Vic doesn't do anything without a plan, and I think he went back and looked at that film and saw it because they weren't successful with the blitz. They were good at picking it up. You can't take a guy out of coverage against Mahomes and expect to beat him. He's just too damn good.
Right.
So Vic said, okay, we're not. And he went to his front four and he said, okay, guys, I need you guys to deliver. And they played with absolute violence. I mean, absolute violence on Sunday.
Yeah.
And
I mean, when you can drop 7 guys into coverage and get there with 4, you're done. You're done.
When we had Freddie Burns on last week, that was kind of the underlining message that Fred had said, is that this team is not going to just walk in and just be happy to be there. They're going to introduce the Kansas City Chiefs to violence.
Yes.
And that hit the nail on the head. Like, as I'm watching the game, I'm thinking back to what Fred had said there, and I'm like, man, he couldn't have hit it any more on the head than that.
I mean, it's not like it's a surprise. The Eagles defensive front has treated everybody the same way. They did it to the Rams. They definitely did it to Washington.
Yeah,
definitely.
Definitely. I mean, and I said this last week, if they land Myles Garrett,
oh my God.
Well, look, we're going to unpack that as the offseason happens, but yeah, if they land Myles, I mean, so that leads me into my next question, Frank, because I brought it up to James. Now, me and James are, slightly younger than you, and for me, I got to ask, it's tough, but where would you rank now that this is done? Where would you rank this team all time as far as from beginning to end, total team, everything? Where would you rank this team all time in Philly sports history? I mean, like with any Philly sports. I mean, I heard
Well,
83 Sixers. That's the first one I heard that is comparable to this.
well, to see, I mean, I was a little young, but I still remember Wilt playing. The 67 Sixers were an absolutely dominant team. They won 68 and lost 8, I think. They were one of the greatest. Actually, until the Bulls beat their record, they were the greatest basketball team put together ever.
Well, I mean, here's my thing. So, Frank, would you say unequivocally that the 67 Sixers were better than the 83? Because that's far before me and James's time. So I'm trusting your
when you're comparing apples to oranges, because it was different eras, different players. The 83 Sixers were pretty friggin' dominant. You'd have to rank them. You have to rank them right up there. I mean, if you're going to pick a top 5 of teams that were the greatest in Philly sports history, I'd have to rank that Sixers team first, the Eagles team second. This year's Eagles team, because I mean, they were 2 passes away from having 1 loss for the season. This and I mean, like, it goes unanswered because everybody expects all that glory to be heaped upon the quarterback for orchestrating a season the way the Eagles orchestrated this season. But it really wasn't one guy. I mean, even though Saquon Barkley was the offensive player of the year, he doesn't get there without that offensive line doing what they do, and he doesn't get there without that defense playing the way they did.
Right.
So this was, I'm going to put it this way. This was the best cohesive team ever in Philadelphia sports history. Okay. I've never seen in my life, I've never seen a team more cohesive and focused on their goal. Like, nothing stopped them. Right. There was all kinds of stuff going on in the offseason or during the season with Sirianni and his crap that happened in the Cleveland game, and AJ Brown and the book, and I mean, like, there was a lot of things that could have derailed the locker room that we wouldn't have seen, but it didn't. They stayed completely focused, absolutely completely focused. And here's, to me, and I mean, everybody else should really pay attention to this. The guys that we have from Georgia, okay, and the other SEC teams, they would finish the championship, and it's like, okay, on to the next one.
Right.
It's like they just carry their briefcase and go back to work. That's the mentality that exists on this Eagles team right now.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then they're going to go back into next season with the same look. All this other crap aside, this is what we need to do. And if they go in with that same focus, God help the league.
Yeah. And
I mean, the Phillies of 1980 were a great team. Okay, I mean, it was comprised of a lot of guys who, well, you had 1, 2, 3 Hall of Famers on that team, and probably another 3 or 4 guys who were, well, I wouldn't say should have been, but could be considered.
Yeah.
The 08 Phillies, there's guys on that team that should be in the Hall of Fame that will never get in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
I agree.
That was a good team. It wasn't a great team. It was a good team. It would have been a great team had they won at least one more. Then it would have been qualified as a great team, and 3 of those guys their place in Cooperstown would have been secured.
Yeah.
So that leaves
the Sixers team of '83 was solidified by Moses. Okay, because that team could not get over the hump. For 6 years, could not get over the hump. And then Moses came and said, "This is what we're going to do." And then he was 4-5-0 in the playoffs. I mean, they just destroyed everybody in the playoffs. So they're top 5.
Yeah.
And then you got to go to the 73-74 Flyers.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that was
and we talked about that with the Flyers. Like, I think that the Flyers and the Broad Street Bullies, like, they're a good team. That was a good team. It was comprised by a lot of guys that were like the gritty guys, but I wouldn't necessarily put them up there with some of the caliber of some of these other
you have to, Joe. And I'll tell you why.
I think you have to.
You know, you're right. There was a lot of gritty guys on that team, but how many? There's how many Hall of Famers on that team?
Well, yeah,
that's true.
Yeah,
and here's the caveat, and it's the same standard I set for Will Chamberlain. What did the Flyers accomplish by those two teams in 73, 74, 74, 75? What was the direct result of those two teams?
Stanley Cup champions.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about league wide, not just the individual.
Changing how teams play physicality.
They changed the rule book. Yeah. They had to rewrite the rule book when they got to the first season, 73, 74. The rule book was this thin.
Right.
Okay, I'm not lying.
I believe it.
It was like 20 pages. When they got done, the rule book was like that. I mean, they added like 70 pages, 80 pages to the rule book just because of the way the Flyers played.
Yeah.
Okay? That's the mark of a great team. When the league has to respond to how a team is playing, and they're being so dominant because they were unbelievably dominant. Right. Yes, they achieved it by violence, okay? But that violence was allowed.
Right.
You know, and thank God it was, because I went to that parade, so I've seen a parade for each team, so they deserve to be there.
So my question then, this kind of leads me into my next question, which is, do you believe? And I get that we have, this one, and I know that some people can say, even though there are two different rosters, 2 Super Bowls in 7 years could be kind of in that vein. But do you feel like this team could potentially be a dynasty?
Yes. And I mean, it's anything can happen in football.
I mean, James,
but when you look on paper at the Eagles team, right, the way it is constructed now, when BG retires, they will go from being the second youngest team in football to being the youngest team in football.
Right.
Okay. And you just came off a Super Bowl championship in a dominating run of a season with the second youngest team in football.
Right.
So keeping those guys focused, and thank God there's so many SEC and SEC great players on this team, because they're used to this. This is. I mean, it was drilled into them every day in college. Whether they were at Alabama or Georgia, it was like, okay, next game, next game, next game, next season, next game, next game, next game, next season. That's just the way they think there. They don't know any other way to think. And that is a scary prospect.
Mm-hmm.
That is a terrifying prospect for the NFL, because if the Eagles do this, they could win at least 1, probably 2, and if they're really lucky, 3 Super Bowls in the next 5 years.
Wow.
If they do it right, if they can keep everybody focused and manage the budget, they have the core of a team that could be like thought of like the Pittsburgh Steelers of the 70s.
Oh my God.
So this is my next question. So what do you think is more likely to happen? The Philadelphia Eagles win 1 more Super Bowl in the next 3 years, or the Kansas City Chiefs win 2 more in the next 5 years?
Well, there's a lot of look, Kansas City can win, okay, because they have the quarterback that they have. I mean, that's 2/3 of the battle. Kansas City. I don't think Kansas City is going to win 2 more because I don't know how long Andy Reid's going to stay.
Right.
Andy Reid. It's really up to Andy Reid. And I mean, you have to. I mean, you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, and they went through same thing the Eagles did. They went through 20 years of desert and came out on top. And I mean, like everybody calls them the evil empire now because they're winning, But the Patriots did the same thing. Yeah. I mean, before Tom Brady, they were the Patsies. Before Mahomes, Kansas City was an afterthought in that division. It was the Raiders division.
Yep.
But
or the Broncos division.
Yep. And Kansas City was always okay, but they were never great. Then they get Mahomes, they become great, and now they're the evil empire. Well, guess whose turn it is to become the evil empire now?
Right.
I mean, we are going to be the evil empire for the next couple of years, guys. The league already hates us. Everybody in football hates us. So we should just embrace it and go, hey, there you go.
So let me ask this. So what was the one moment, if there was one moment in the Super Bowl that made you feel like this is it? We got it. Like, because it wasn't a nail biter. So, but there had to be that in your mind, like a turning point play. What was the turning point play in the game for you?
The first back-to-back sack on Patrick Mahomes in the first quarter. I thought, nobody does this to Mahomes. Nobody does this to Mahomes. Something's different. And it just, I kind of felt right from that point, the Eagles are just beating the hell out of them on the offensive and defensive line. They're going to win this game, and it's not even going to be wet. But, I mean, the actual nail biter, the actual nail in the coffin was Cooper DeJean. That was like, okay, it's over.
Yeah.
It's over. That to me was just like, okay, let's start drinking because this is party time.
Yeah, right.
So, like, James, I'm going to ask you the same question, but before I do, I wanted to kind of give this, because that was kind of my response too about Cooper interception, because prior to the game, 2 things were true. Patrick Mahomes doesn't turn the ball over, and Patrick Mahomes doesn't get sacked.
Mm-hmm.
Well, both became reality early on in that game. And when Cooper not only picked the ball off, but took it to the house, it was kind of emblematic, because I honestly thought, okay, this guy who's a rookie just basically put Patrick Mahomes, like played with Patrick Mahomes, because he read Patrick's eyes. There was an analysis and an interview with Cooper after the game saying, how did you do that? Like, what helped you get that interception? And he said, well, I did, watch video, and I noticed that Patrick Mahomes would run where he would always try to, scan the field, roll out, and then he would always go back and rescan the field the other way and try to make a miraculous throw. And he's like, all I did was just sit on the route and watch his eyes. And
he actually came off his own coverage to do that.
Yeah. He just sat and he just watched Patrick versus the receivers. So that made me believe that he knew what Patrick was up to. And for that guy at that age, 22 years old, to be that intelligent.
Wow.
Well, I mean, he showed that all year long.
Well, I understand, but I mean, sometimes, and Frank, we've seen this before. Sometimes kids at that, they can shine the brightest or they can wilt. And
there's no wilting there.
No. And so, James, I got to ask you, like, do you agree? Like, the Cooper DeJean was the pick 6 was the turning point, or did you have another one?
It's a very good question, because it's like there was a lot of like X factors and also turning points of the game. For me, I would say that was probably the first turning point, but the second one was the dagger, like the deep ball to Devontae Smith. Was the one
that was beautiful.
That was perfect.
Beautiful.
I'm not gonna lie to you, when he didn't hand the ball off to Barkley, I was like, oh god, here we. I thought it was gonna turn into a disaster, but that deep ball, I mean, even seeing like the NFL films, like recapping that play, it was just like
Yeah.
it was just nothing short of amazing. Mitch Kovsky joins us again and says this is the next dynasty, and we can all agree that's going to be the case for this Eagles club in the
They
next
got to
5
win
years.
another one. They got to win another one in the next 2 years for it to be called a dynasty.
Well, that's
Yeah.
why
I
I
agree.
brought up that question. It's like in the next,
Yeah.
so you have this window. If it's 2 or 3 years, you have this window that if you get another one, you can then kind of put it into and this team is built as young as they are.
Mm-hmm.
Can 2 or 3 years isn't like that far fetched. It
No,
really
it's
is.
not far fetched at all. It's not
And
far fetched at all.
and so like and especially because and I will give immense kudos to Howie Roseman because this is a guy that not only has built this team the way he has, but whenever there's a bump in the road, I mean, we go back to Carson Wentz and having to deal with that bump in the road. He dealt with that bump in the road and got past it within 2 years. Dealing with the other bumps in the road as far as like, trying to rebuild a team and then getting them back to the Super Bowl in 2022, and then having a lot of question marks after 2022 when you lost. Okay, what are you going to do? You're losing TJ Edwards and you're losing, some of these other guys. Like, what are you going to do? Like, there's a lot of holes. That's all I heard after 2022. And Howie once again just said, okay, just let me do my thing. And that's one of the reasons why I say if you give this guy a window, Howie a window, he's always going to make sure that this team is set up for success. And that I think that is the pinnacle of what a GM should really be about. We don't have that everywhere in sports in general, but we definitely. I mean, I said this earlier, Frank, and maybe you could agree. Howie and the Eagles organization have been playing chess while the rest of the NFL has been playing checkers.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, Joe, up until, and you got to, I hate to do this, but you have to thank Chip Kelly for this.
Yeah, right.
Chip Kelly relegated Howie to the basement.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I heard this week, Jeffrey Lurie went to Howie and said, okay, look, we're going to let Chip try and run with this. We hired him as the coach. We got to let him run with it. But this is what I want you to do. I want you to go out and try and make yourself a better GM. So, and at the time, Matty B had a point back then, because back then, Howie wasn't the best GM in the world. He had made some really bad decisions on draft day. He trusted the wrong people. He was heading down a path where he was going to get fired. But Howie, being the super intelligent guy that he is, turned around and said, okay, how am I going to do this? So he went to other teams in the city, teams outside the city, and he sat down with their GMs to learn how to be a GM.
Mm-hmm.
So when he came back, he took all that information and just said, okay, this is what we got to do. And you look
Right.
at him now. I mean, you look at his last 3 drafts. Okay. Every single one of his top 3 picks is still on the team. And not only on the team, but producing, and some of them in Pro Bowl levels. This doesn't happen in football.
No.
I mean,
No.
The success rate for your top picks, your top 3 or 4 picks, is about 30%.
Mm-hmm.
And Howie's at like 80%.
And I don't even say this, is that like I remember back, when the Eagles went in 2004 and they went to the Super Bowl, they had a good team, and I get it, but they had a lot of holes despite having a good team.
Yeah.
And like there wasn't this overabundance of confidence that it was almost like if you don't win it now, you're not going to win it. Because
I'll tell you what eroded the confidence in that team, Joe. 2004 was their 4th shot at a Super Bowl in 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what happened every single year was they were always something short. There was always a piece missing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Andy Reid did the best he could, but Joe Banner was like
no, we're going to do this way.
Right.
You know, it was either the wide receivers or a running back or anybody who was over 30, even though he was a contributor to the team, would cut him. You know, I mean, that cost us Super Bowls.
Right.
All right. And by 04, even though they got there and even though they had TO, they were short. They were short. And I mean, it showed. It's and another thing that I mean, this involves the evolution of Andy Reid as a coach. And I mean, but it demonstrated itself this week. You can relate exactly what happened last Sunday to the Eagles' loss to Tampa Bay when Tampa Bay won the Super Bowl against the Raiders. You can it is a mirror image football game because Andy Reid refused to. He just stopped trying to run the football. He just stopped. Okay, and he did the same thing against Tampa Bay. No, we're gonna because Andy Reid is pass. He's always been a pass guy, and if you guys remember that team back then, for the most part, until they got TO, they were a dink and dunk team. That's Andy Reid's MO. He's dink and dunk, dink and dunk, dink and dunk, and then he gets Patrick Mahomes, who can do anything. You know, Patrick Mahomes was Donovan McNabb on steroids. You know, and I mean it's the truth. It is the truth. He's a much better quarterback than Donovan McNabb ever was. But I mean, he had the same attributes. Donovan had the same attributes. He just wasn't as good. But that team, that game, and this game are almost mirrors. Now, I have a friend of mine who's a Kansas City fan, and he looked at me and he goes, "Andy just refused to run the ball." I said, "I'll tell you what. Go back and look at the Tampa Bay game." I said, "This is Andy Reid.
Yeah, right.
This is his. I said it's like a computer chip in his head. It's like default. I'm going to go back to my default setting because he didn't have anybody else. He didn't have a long game anymore. There was no and the Eagles defense just took it away. I mean, they dropped 7 into coverage and they rushed 4 and got home with 4. I'm sorry, but you just don't have it. There's no wide receiver there who was good enough to consistently get deep on the Eagles and not be covered. You know, and that just destroyed him. And he should have ran the ball, and he didn't.
21 years later, you know, this is the thing. Is like Eagles fans, I agree with you, Frank, because like I remember through that whole Andy Reid era, like run the ball, Andy, run the ball, run the ball. And like
that's how he scored the first touchdown in that game, Joe. He ran dudes down the field, and he scores the touchdown easy. At that time, Tampa Bay was a team that I mean, if you ran the ball, their defensive line just quit.
Yeah.
And Andy just played right into their hands. That was the Tampa 2 defense.
Yes.
And I mean, Andy just played right into their hands. That is the only Eagles game in my entire life that I left the game early.
So
I was so disgusted with what I saw on the field. I left at the beginning of the fourth quarter. I was like, I can't sit here anymore and watch this. Because they're going to lose.
This speaks to the evolution of Eagles. Now, whether it's Nick Sirianni or Kellen Moore or whoever, but you notice that in the Super Bowl, like Spagnuolo schemed up to stop Saquon, and
that's all they did. They sold out,
right? And despite that, they still hand the ball off to Saquon.
Yes, they had to.
You're like, look, you're going to get 2 yards, but Jalen's going to eat. Relax. So. That was the difference. In my mind, Saquon turns to Jalen and goes, "You're dead," and that's the way this team rolls. It's your day.
I think you know when you look at it, I mean Saquon just shredded weed at the league this year.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And Spagnuolo decided, okay, we are not going to let this guy beat us. We're going to make Jalen Hurts beat us, And really what Spag should have done is studied more closely the Pittsburgh game. Because, you know, I don't know if you guys remember, but like Pittsburgh was like, okay, we're gonna stop Saquon. Okay, fine. Jalen goes back and he has the best game of the year as a quarterback during the season. And he shreds Pittsburgh's defense. Well, they sold out so much that they're telling us you can't beat us with just Jalen. Well, didn't they watch the Super Bowl 2 years earlier? Weren't they in the same game? You know,
Right.
I mean, they didn't adjust at halftime. But see if they had adjusted, and said, okay, we're going to drop some more guys back into coverage, then it's hand the ball to Saquon and he gets a 60-yarder.
Right.
So they had to pick their poison, and you had to keep running Saquon to keep that other defender in. And as a result of it, Jalen went, well, watch this. You think I can't throw the ball to beat you? I'm just going to drop a 50-yard bomb to Smitty. And it was beautiful. That pass was that's the best pass I've seen thrown in so many years. It's not even funny.
So this is the difference. This is the maturation of what Jalen Hurts has done in his career.
Yes.
He doesn't just stand still on, I'm here in the NFL and I'm not going to continue to progress myself. He's like, no, I'm going to figure out how to get better and better and better. And that was when I was watching that game, that Super Bowl, and Jalen was shredding them. I kept repeating what Jalen said. You brought up the Pittsburgh game, and I thought the same thing. When Jalen walked into that press room and said, so that's what y'all wanted to see, huh? That's kept re-echoing in my head throughout the Super Bowl. That's what y'all wanted to see, huh? Everybody wanted to say Jalen can't win the Super Bowl. But then I sat there and I felt the same way as you, Frank, and I'm like, wait a minute. This is the guy who also outplayed Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl 2 years ago.
Right.
Why the hell wouldn't you think he couldn't do it again?
Yeah.
He was 2 plays, 2 mistakes away from
winning that Super Bowl and winning it convincingly.
Right.
I mean, they had to score 2 touchdowns at the end of the fourth quarter to do it. Now that being said, they got completely doped on defense.
Yeah.
You know, and Gannon did not adjust.
No.
You know, the 2 touchdowns that they scored were the same exact play, just one on the left and one on the right. It was. I almost threw a brick through the TV because I saw it coming. You know, but yeah, it was 2 mistakes that cost us the game. It was the fumble, the scoop and score, and the punt return that cost us that game. So it wasn't the hold. It wasn't the hold.
Before we go any further, Hardcore for all checks in and says, was basically the turning point of the game was the series when we got them off the field and they couldn't convert on 4th down, and I guess that was the biggest thing too about that too. So
you could say that when we were up 24-0 at half, you could say when the Kansas City Chiefs came out at halftime that first drive. Depending on how that was going to go, that was the nail in the coffin. That was the final nail.
Well, Joe, they had their chance at the end of the first half to get on the board.
That's true too.
And, I agree. And I mean, they had to get on the board in the first half.
Yes.
There's no 2 ways about it to have any kind of chance at all, and not just sell out to be a total passing team in the second half. Which, of course, the defensive line's just going to pin their ears back and come. You know, they had to score in that first half. And they couldn't. Right. The Eagles defense just said, no, you ain't getting past the 50. Okay? And they didn't get past the 50-yard line until 3 minutes left in the third quarter. Think about that. You kept the Pat Mahomes offense on the other side of the field for 3 almost 3 full quarters of football. They couldn't get past the 50-yard line.
The great Pat Mahomes.
Who does that to Kansas City?
Nobody.
Who does that?
Nobody.
And that's the difference is like everyone kept, just Patrick Mahomes. Like, why are you picking the Kansas City Chiefs? Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
okay?
Patrick,
That's cool.
I cashed on my sports betting account. I know that.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about what happened yesterday in South Philadelphia. The big Super Bowl parade. Frank, I kind of went radio silent a little bit yesterday. I celebrated on Broad and Shunk with my daughter.
Good for you. Nice. I had to work.
Did you?
You had to work. But
I listened to it all day, but I had to work.
So here's my question. What now? I'm not sure where you watched it, Frank, but me and James already talked about this prior to the show. Whoever was controlling that dump button needs to get a new lesson.
Oh my God!
On how to use it. Like, it was terrible. But
Awful.
aside from that, what, like, everybody on the
It's just
that
something
that
what you can't say on television. That could be
right.
bad.
Yeah. But when
You thank Chase Utley for that.
yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
that and Jason Kelsey, because he took that and ball and ran.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so every speech was pretty much abbreviated. But I got to ask, Frank, which speech stood out the most to you from yesterday?
Well, I mean, I hate to say it this way, but they were all kind of they don't have a charismatic figure like Jason Kelsey on the team anymore.
Mhm.
Okay, and I mean, what they did, what was up on the stage was great. It was, and if you really listened, it wasn't this bombastic, charismatic speech.
Mhm.
But if you listened to Jalen Hurts' speech,
Yeah,
right,
man.
right at the very end, right, the last thing he said, the last words out of his mouth was, "Okay, it's time to go back to work."
Yep.
And I mean, it kind of slid out of his mouth.
Yep.
It was like, the party's great, we're having fun, time to
Back
go
to
back to
work.
work.
Yep.
I'm sorry. What? It tells me it's like, okay, we did what we had to do. This is great. This puts a wrap on the season. It's time to go back to work.
It's
And
Kobe.
this is that SEC mentality. This is that Alabama, Georgia mentality. It's like, yeah, okay, we did it. This is great. We partied all week long. We're gonna have a few parties. A couple more weeks. We're gonna have a few more parties. But it's time to go back to work.
It reminded me of Kobe. It reminded me of Kobe when he won titles.
Yeah, I mean, AJ Brown.
Yeah.
AJ Brown, the statement that he made, I think everybody misinterpreted.
Yeah.
I think AJ Brown got the championship, and he went, it was more fun getting here.
Yeah.
I need to do this again.
Yeah.
That's the way I'm thinking. AJ Brown is thinking.
That's how I read it too.
Yeah,
it was
like,
so
I gotta do this again.
misconstrued. And he addressed it briefly, and I said it to James, but I didn't say it like so. When he first went up to the stage, he said something very concisely, but I felt like it made a lot of sense for why he said it. He said, "Everyone who thinks that I'm just here for personal stats, everyone who thinks that I'm just gonna cry and whine and whatnot."
I'm a diva, right?
He's like,
Yeah.
"Guess what? We're world fucking champions."
Right.
That's what I care about. Like, that's what he was basically saying.
I didn't mute that either. So anybody, that's how you.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to apologize to Hardcore and our sponsors. Today is, the Jason Kelsey appreciation show where there will be no dump button. There will be no.
I could have mute you, but then it'll be a 5-minute delay. It'll be a 5-second delay.
I felt bad for Jason. I felt bad for Jason last Sunday because I mean, you're torn. You got to root for your brother. I mean, any one of us would root for our brother. If our brothers, if we had a brother, the three of us had a brother a blood brother playing for the Dallas Cowboys for the Super Bowl, we would have to cheer for our brother.
Yeah.
We would have to. He's our brother. I want my brother to succeed. I would hate every freaking second of it, but I would cheer for my brother, and I'd be happy for his success.
Absolutely.
The people that took shots at Jason for turning his back on, he didn't turn his back on the Eagles. It was just that man was torn apart Sunday. He watched his brother's team get dismantled, but he saw his battle brothers doing their job, so he can be happy for them and sad for his brother at the same time.
Yeah,
I would not want to be living inside his head last week. Would not.
I've said this to James off air, but
Mitch checks in again. Says, "I wouldn't. My brother will be on his own."
Sorry, Mitch. I got to root for my brother.
So like we put out our hype speeches, and James got put into a short and went kind of viral, and I basically said this to James. I'm like, look. This kind of goes into the same logic. If James goes and says, "I loved my time with Pattison Ave, but ESPN is calling. Okay, I love
Yeah.
you. Go do your
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, right.
He's my brother. I'm gonna support him and everything else. Am I gonna miss him? Am I gonna still like carry on? Sure, but
Mhm.
like that's the thing is you don't go, oh, well, he's going to the evil empire with ESPN, so he's gonna, forget all about the. No, I would hope he wouldn't, but at the same time, I'm proud. I would be proud of a guy. You root for your brothers, you just
Yeah.
do.
Mhm.
And like with Jason, he had brothers on both sides of the ball. He had brothers he went to war with, and he
Right.
had a literal blood brother on the other side. Like
Yeah.
him and Lane Johnson are connected at the hip. Okay,
Right.
like that's his brother, even if it's not blood. And
Right.
like
He would,
that,
he would
and
be
Cam,
bleeped on ESPN.
what
What's
happened?
that?
No, Mets checks says he would be bleeped on ESPN.
Oh yeah, you'd be on the Pat McAfee show because they can curse on that show.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
So-
They should. The only thing they should have done, they should have listened to Pat McAfee for 2 minutes and see what.
Jackass, yeah, we know.
Yeah.
But
I loved the early in the week watching all the pundits, especially Nick Wright.
Oh yeah, that was funny.
Did you hear that? Did you hear the story about Nick Wright at the one party? He was at the clutch party, and he said
No, I
this
didn't
woman
hear about
walked.
that.
He says this woman walks up to me, and she's like, "Why are you so down on Jalen Hurts? Why? And I mean, like, why are you not giving this kid the credit that he deserves?" And he's trying to answer this woman, and he goes, "It's like 10 minutes, and she's not letting me go." And he went, "Excuse me, but are you Jalen's mother?" and she said, "Yes, I am."
Wow. Damn.
yo, don't mess with Mrs. Hurts. Don't mess with Mrs. Hurts.
Damn.
I mean, she went right up and she just butt whooped him. You know, and she said,
Damn.
he said, and sorry, he says, bad on me for not knowing his mother. But boy, oh boy, she tore me up for 10 minutes. And he said, and I was asking her, are you his mother? Simply because of the way that she was defending him. And when she said yes, he said,
Damn.
I was dumbfounded.
That's where you hear the kind of like the little
Right.
knot in his throat gets swallowed down. Like okay,
Yeah.
He's like Ralph Cramden and Honeymooners.
Right.
Humana,
It was
humana,
funny.
humana.
It was one of the
I
funny.
hear-
It was one of the funniest pundit stories I heard all week.
Oh,
It was like,
Oh, that is fantastic, man. That is
well,
fantastic.
speaking of the talking heads, there's been some level of disrespect already thrown out to your Philadelphia Eagles
course.
via James's
ESPN.
new- yeah, James's new employer. ESPN. So they ranked the 59 Super Bowl champions. So
Mhm.
from 1 to 59, and they ranked them.
Right.
And there was this ridiculous, I don't even remember the ridiculous metric that they measured them by. But I mean, I need to have a biology, chemistry, actuaries degree to understand it. But
Right.
anyhow, they ranked the 2024 Super Bowl champions as out of 59, number 39.
Right.
And 2017, number 31. So
Really?
the 85 Bears were ranked third.
Okay.
So, and even like the 2000 Ravens were in the 20s.
Yeah.
So I was just dumbfounded because I'm like, okay,
Wait, what?
what? I'm
Well,
like,
yeah, really. What
I'm
the-
sorry. Did you
Well,
not?
look. Philadelphia never gets the respect that they need. But here's the thing that you need to know about Philadelphia. That the Eagles organization may not be showered with the same glory as the Cowboys and the Niners and the Patriots and the Chiefs and the Steelers. They may not have all those rings, okay? But you know what the Eagles have done? They've beaten the three greatest GOATs in football. They handed Vince Lombardi his only loss in the championship.
Yep.
They dethroned Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
And they bitch slapped Mahomes last week.
I don't know.
Okay, I'm sorry, but you can rank us anywhere you want. I really don't care. I don't give a shit where you rank us because ESPN also came out and said we are the fourth favorite to win the Super Bowl next year.
Yes.
They put Kansas City ahead of us. I'm sorry, but Kansas City has holes.
Yeah,
They have holes.
a lot of
And we
holes.
don't.
Yeah, exactly, Joe.
We don't have holes.
No, we don't.
Know? They ranked Buffalo ahead of us, Kansas City ahead of us, and who was the other team they ranked ahead of us?
Buffalo Ravens.
Yeah, it was the Ravens.
Yeah.
They ranked all three of those teams ahead of us.
All right.
And I mean, I'm sorry, but no.
No. You're right.
And let me wonder, who did we beat in Baltimore this year? Oh, that's right, the Ravens. Who did we bitch slap in Baltimore this year? Derrick Henry. Who did we just bitch slap on the biggest stage of them all? Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. But yet, these teams
now next season,
are still better.
Next season, the Eagles are going to get really tested because their schedule next year ain't no joke. It ain't no joke.
But you know what? I think with this team, honestly, and I may be speaking too prematurely, but I think with this team, they want a bigger challenge. They're going to get it. For it.
They're going to get it. They're going to get their challenge this year because they're going to play a schedule that's grueling. You know, I mean, it's really grueling. If they come through this and win the division again, they'll cement themselves.
Yeah.
As a dynasty type team.
Yeah. Mitchkovsky joins us again and says, "Wait, I got a ring in it." And if you haven't know about it, his name is Quinyal Mitch. He calls himself Mitchkovsky, or Mitchkov, or
Quinyal Mitchell. We get it.
But and he said, "Yeah, the schedule next season is very difficult." You know, I mean, I would say it is, but the good thing about it is that there's no like Western road trips with California. Only road trip they have is like the Chargers, kind of like they did this year with the Rams. I mean, it's pretty close.
Well, that's a home game for the Eagles.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's going to be another
game. You know, they can't. The Chargers can't sell any tickets in that stadium, and when the Eagles go out there, they buy them all up. I mean, the last time they played the Chargers out there, there was like 25,000 Eagles fans in that stadium.
Yeah, and that was at their other stadium before this one. So before SoFi.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's the thing is with this team, like, they're going to take like the level of disrespect that they're already getting. I think that's part of the reason why you have to love Jalen Hurts, because he's like, okay, let's celebrate it, but let's go back to work.
Yeah,
let's get back into it because it's going to be a quick turnaround. It's February.
Look, there's not too many teams that have answers for what the Eagles put on the field. They just don't. I mean, there aren't too many teams that can answer that offensive line, and apparently now there aren't too many teams that can answer that defensive line. And Jalen Carter is just man, I love that kid.
You know, something that
violence.
You brought up something about the 04 team, and it got me thinking a little bit about the Chiefs and the holes that they have. If you think about the way the Chiefs are constructed now, I am not saying Patrick Mahomes levels up to or compares to Donovan McNabb, not even close. But that team, you got to think about, like, Donovan didn't have, like, outside of T.O., didn't have, like, those stud receivers. In Kansas City, there isn't really those stud receivers. I mean, I know.
Well, the kid they drafted, Worthy.
Right. Yeah. He's going to be good. He's not there yet, though.
No.
And so, like.
Well, they got a bigger problem.
Travis
They're going to have to. They got to figure out how to replace Kelsey because Kelsey. I mean, I love Kelsey. He's a great player. He always was. And he's just like his brother. You know, he plays his ass off.
Right.
Off the field, he's kind of a
knucklehead.
Yeah, he is kind of a knucklehead. But they're gonna have a hard time replacing that guy. They have a really hard time replacing that guy.
And that deadline is like literally like in the next month or so. So like not even like halfway, not even towards the soup, not even like at the end of the Super Bowl.
Right around the corner.
Yeah, free agency's right around the corner. I mean, like literally, he has to make his mind up before. Because here's the thing too: if he makes his mind up now, I mean, let's say for example he says he's coming back, right, and then he makes his decision, but then like 3 months later, he's like, you know what? I think I don't want to play anymore. And then they're basically in the jackpot for like the
On
team. Like,
Andrew Luck, basically.
yeah, right.
Kind of goes into training
What?
camp and then decides,
I don't want to play anymore.
I don't want to play anymore. And
Yeah.
Well, they're not
leaves
going
and-
to find a replacement for him in free agency.
No.
They're going to have to draft a guy.
Yeah.
They're going to have to
And
draft a guy.
there's
And
gonna be some-
unfortunately for them, they're at the bottom of the draft, so they're not going to get the Penn State kid,
No.
who I would love to see in Eagles green, but that's not.
Oh,
gonna
I would too.
Well,
They say it might be better than Bowers too.
Mitchkoff or Mitchy Poo might be loving the fact that there might be a Mitchell wearing Kansas City colors from Notre Dame. Because that tight end from Mitchell, he might go to the second round. He might go into be a Chief.
Yeah.
And that would be a good draft choice. But because there is some depth in the tight end pool this draft. So they might be fortunate. But, I agree with James. Like, if Travis doesn't make up his mind, I mean, Frank, do you just go and look for the replacement heir apparent now, regardless if Travis has made up his mind or not?
Yes, I mean that's what Andy Reid did.
Right.
He always had a tight end who could replace the guy who was in there. And you look at it, he replaced Selleck with Ertz. He replaced Goddard. He replaced Ertz with Goddard. That's what the Eagles do. And he was part of that. Look, a lot of what Howie has learned came from the roots that Andy Reid planted.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to deny that Andy Reid. It's hard to say Andy Reid doesn't know what the hell he's doing, because he obviously does.
Yeah.
He's the winningest coach in Eagles history,
Yep.
and he's now the winningest coach in Kansas City history, and he's hanging Super Bowls up on the wall to match it. So anything he did here, and Andy was always built from the inside out kind of guy, and that's what the Eagles do. How long have the Eagles had a dominant offensive line? It's been 15, 20 years.
It's
like it didn't matter. They've
been
had
a while.
if you had to beat the Eagles up front, or you weren't going to win the game. Well, the proof's in the pudding. How many double-digit win seasons have we had since 1999?
Well, you could say the same thing on the other side of the ball. How good has our defensive line been for how long?
Yeah, I know, but the defense is going like this. The defense is going up and down. We've had good defensive years. We've had bad defensive years. But we have had consistent offensive line play for the better part of 20 years. The better part of 20 years.
That this is, on both fronts, the defensive line and the offensive line. This season was us coming off losing potentially, well, for sure, one Hall of Famer, but potentially two Hall of Famers in Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelsey.
Right.
And being able to kind of plug and play, Milton Williams played his ass off.
Yeah.
Jordan Davis.
We're going to lose him.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to say it too.
I feel like we're going to lose Milton. I feel like we're
maybe
gonna
Josh
lose
Sweat too.
We're going to lose Josh Sweat. We're going to lose.
I feel like the two guys that Howie needs to circle are Zach Bond and Mekhi Becton.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, I think they're going to get both of them simply because both of those guys are they see what they did here. And they're gonna get both of them. But Milt Williams is gonna want to be paid as a starter. And I love the way he's played this year, but he's not a starter. He's a rotational tackle. And he's gonna demand, and Clutch is gonna get it for him. There's gonna be a team that's gonna pay him, and he's gonna get starting tackle money, which is on the order of like $18 million, $19 million a year, and he's not worth that here. He's just not.
He reminds me a little bit of Vinny Curry when we lost Vinny Curry after the 18.
More like Hargrove.
Okay.
Hargrave, yeah.
But I looked at Vinny Curry like he went to Tampa Bay and got the starting nod, and like 6 weeks into the next season, and he got paid. But 6 weeks into that season, he just was a shell of himself.
Yes.
And I think Milton Williams is going to, and good for him, he's going to back up the Brinks truck and go get a starting job somewhere.
So is Sweat.
Right. But I feel like both are going to realize that the grass isn't always greener somewhere else.
Well, look, you know what makes the grass greener? That green stuff that's going to fall out of that bag they're going to grab.
Yeah.
They're going to get their bag. They're going to get their bag. And in Sweat's case, he deserves it because he took a pay cut to come back this year.
Yes.
Mhm.
You know, so somebody's going to offer him money, and he's going to say, "I got to take it, guys." And Howie's going to go, "Look, you do what you got to do." You know, Howie's got 6 guys on the roster that have over $50 million contracts.
Right.
You know, so
And say what you will, but they're all guys. You could criticize them about that, but they're all guys that contribute day in and
oh my
day out.
God, there's not one bum in the bunch.
Yeah.
There's not one bum in the bunch.
Michkowski joins us one more time and says, Slay staying or going. So,
Well,
Slay
they
might
can't.
retire.
They can't. No, they can't. He's got 1 year left on his deal.
I don't know. But
And if he stays, it's $16 million. If they cut him, it's a $22 million cap hit.
oh,
Well,
okay.
okay. You know, I don't mind keeping him, but at
No,
the
he
same
can
time-
play.
You can
Right.
play, yeah.
But if he chooses to retire, I respect it. I
Yeah,
mean,
he's not going to retire.
Probably become
Slay's
more of a
not-
mentor, maybe.
Slay's not leaving $16 million on the table.
Oh,
He's
no.
not doing that.
No,
Yeah,
I don't think so.
Now here's the thing, and me and my friend, we were watching the parade and the ceremony, and we got into a debate. And on a celebratory day, we got into a debate because I was like, I can't believe James Bradbury got a ring. He's like, well, no, I love James Bradbury. I'm like, what? And he explained something to me. He's like, now, I don't know the validity in it. I don't know the truth in it. If there is, great. But he said that James Bradbury accepted his role and mentored some of the younger guys in film study in order to improve their skill set.
Why wouldn't he? Because that's what the Eagles do.
Right.
Right.
But
You know,
to sit there and be like,
the Eagles gave James Bradbury, when they first signed him, a chance that nobody was willing to give James Bradbury.
right.
Okay,
Exactly.
This is how Howie Roseman and I mean Jeffrey Lurie have garnered the love of the players that they have, because they'll take like Mekhi Becton.
Yep.
Mhm.
He was done. I mean, the
Yep.
Jets. When you become a cast off of the Jets, you very rarely wind up back in football.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
because it's like, okay, he's just a bust pick from the Jets. We don't want him. You know,
Right.
you might take him as cannon fodder for your check for your camp, but you know, Stoutland said no. This kid's got ability. They're just playing him in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
And
He
they
saw
brought him in.
potential. Yeah.
What's that?
He saw potential in Becton.
Yeah. Well, he saw the same potential in Jordan Mailata.
Yep.
I mean, who the hell sees potential in people in New Zealand? You know?
Right.
Yeah. This was something I brought up to James before the show. You know, there's a lot of like little sub stories that came out with the Eagles, but Jordan Mailata has got to be like the top. First Australian-born NFL player to win a Super Bowl.
Who
Wow.
didn't play football 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Didn't even know the rules.
Right.
Didn't
Had
even
to
know how the
learn
game was played.
Had to learn it from the ground up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Had to learn
Right.
it from the ground. Well, I mean, I wrote that article. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
And
the
you
odds
did
of
an
him-
excellent
the-
job doing it. So
the odds of him becoming, you know, I mean, I was writing that article on the odds of playing the NFL and how like you have to throw the calculator away when you come to a guy like Jordan Mailata.
Yeah.
Because you can't calculate. You know, it's like 1,000,000 to 1 for a kid who's playing Pee Wee football to get to the pros.
Yeah.
And that's a kid who's been playing Pee Wee football, been playing football his whole life.
yeah.
And then Jordan Mailata comes along, and he's never played football a day in his life. And the first time he steps on a field, it's a professional football field. Nobody. I mean, that's like it's quantum leap shit. You know, nobody does this.
So
And to not only do it, but become arguably the best left tackle in football.
yes.
You
And
know,
My
it's
daughter
amazing.
and I
He's an amazing man. He's an amazing man.
my daughter and I are watching the parade, and my daughter, you know, I'm basically looking through her eyes and she's describing certain things as the parade's going along, and I'm just taking it all in. But she turned to me and she said, "Daddy, there's a giant on top of the bus." And I go, "Well, I don't need to know who that is, but I'm just guessing she's talking about Jordan Mailata.
Yeah.
He's the tallest dude on the damn team." I
Right.
was like, that, you know. And she's like, "There's a giant on the bus," and she couldn't just get that out of her head.
Right.
And I'm like, "It's okay. He's on."
He does
he's
look
on
like
our
a giant. He does look like a giant.
And I'm 6'2", and I look tiny compared to him, man. I met him at Dolan's like a few years back.
Yeah. No, he's an amazing. Well, I mean, the average size of that line is incredible.
Oh
It's
my
six-
God, yeah.
6'6", 339. That's the
So-
average size of the offensive lineman.
You want to know? I did the math on I did math on a Super Bowl Sunday. Well, technically, Lady A did math for me, but I still wanted to do it. So the weight, the total combined weight
Oh, I know
for
this
the
answer.
Eagles' offensive line
Right.
is comparable to 1 short ton.
Oh my
Right.
God.
Like, I'm sorry.
It's
What?
like, it's like 1,700 pounds.
It's like a big old anvil.
Yeah. I'm like, you're moving a ton. It's like
Yeah.
moving a freaking car that's not in neutral.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Okay, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Mentos commercial, be damned.
Yeah.
But
Right.
you know, we're gonna wrap it up for today. My voice is
Yeah.
getting more hoarse from the drinking and the partying yesterday and
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, that's why, buddy.
But
and guys, we are less than a week away from the Phillies' first broadcast of the year.
yes,
Nice.
Yes.
And I
Nice.
told you what to expect this year. It's not.
Yeah, I do too.
It's a bad wind that's going to be blown from South Philly this year. Bad wind.
Yeah.
well, you know, here's the final thing that I'll ask. You bring that up. Can the Phillies take harness this momentum the Eagles have made and do something miraculous? Like, can they harness this momentum? And another team on another sport.
It's gonna for the Phillies to do this, for the Phillies to achieve success this season. Their pitchers are going to have to start the season exactly the way they started it last year.
Mm-hmm.
If those starting pitchers come out and even one of them is not up to speed that he was last year,
Taiwan Walker. I'm sorry.
they're well. Taiwan Walker, his days are numbered. Taiwan Walker's days are over in May when Andrew Painter comes up. That's when Taiwan Walker will go away. And the only reason he's still on the team is because they can't get anybody to take him, and he's getting paid a shit ton of money.
Yep.
You know, but I mean, you can't throw 89-mile-an-hour meatballs up there and expect to make a living in the pros. It just doesn't work. You know, and Taiwan Walker, you know, he had his Tommy John a few years back. He needs another one, but it ain't going to help him because the second Tommy John always kills the arm. You know.
Yeah.
He need a Tommy John to his head. That's what.
It's not his head. It's not his head, Joe. He
tries to be a thrower instead of a pitcher.
The gas is gone. The gas is gone. He's got no gas left in the tank, and you can't win. I mean, like you can't if you're throwing under 94 miles an hour in this league, you're done.
Right.
The hitters are too good. The hitters are too good.
Turn into Jamie Moyer.
Yeah, but he doesn't have that kind of control. He's never had that kind of control. He was a power pitcher. He was a power pitcher.
True.
You know, I mean, there's no Jamie Moyer hiding inside of Taiwan Walker.
No.
And I think they're going to limit his starts anyway. He's going to be the fifth man who gets to play like once every other week. You know,
I wish they would go with a 4-man rotation and then every once in a while a spot starter.
I like the 5-man rotation because they get to the end of the year and they got gas left in the tank. You know, the years of the 4-man rotation are over. You know, that was my childhood. That was my 70s. You know, you had 4 starting pitchers and you went with those guys. The pitchers today, they don't even come close to 300 innings pitched.
Well, even back in 08, you got it 08, 09, 10, 2010, you had the 4 aces. Like, you had a 4-man rotation there.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, it's like you said, like, that's gone with the dodo bird because, you know, like, the analytics just doesn't speak to it. And, you know, I just hope, you know, I want Bryce Harper to have seen what the Eagles did, to see the mentality that Jalen Hurts has carried and take that and bring that into the clubhouse for the Phillies.
Yeah, Bryce isn't the problem. They need that mentality. They need that mentality in their shortstop.
Oh,
I agree.
Okay,
I agree.
They need Bryce. Bryce has never shied away from the moment. Bryce loves the moment.
Bryce is the one that brought that guy in, so he's got to put his boy in line.
Yeah, he's got to put as CJ said, he's got to put BTA. He's got to put belt.
I love that.
He's got to put belt to ass.
I love that.
You know,
Oh, I thought it was
I mean,
beat that ass. So I didn't.
No, it's
Belt
belt
to
to ass. It's
Belt
belt
to
to
ass.
ass. Right.
Oh, okay. I got you. I got you.
So no,
That's
he's
an
got.
old school thing too.
Yep, he's got.
Yep.
No, he needs that. That kid needs BTA. He needs BTA.
Damn.
But
Damn right.
that's gonna do it for our show. But I want to thank Frank Finnigan once again for coming
Oh,
on.
guys, such a great year.
Yeah,
Such a
man.
great year to watch that team play. Such a pleasure. I can't wait till they're back on the field and doing it again.
And you
I
know
can't
what?
wait to see what Saquon does next year because I think they're going to diminish his role on purpose.
I'm gonna echo what Merle Reese said towards the end. Rejoice and
Savor.
enjoy, savor it. Like
Savor it and
savor
rejoice.
this.
Yep. Savor
Yeah.
this.
Because sometimes I think, and I get it, let Jalen be worried about let's go back to work. Let him worry about that.
Right.
Yeah.
But let us as fans enjoy and savor this. This doesn't
Yeah.
always happen.
I'll
And
tell you who I really don't feel bad for. San Francisco. San
No,
Francisco,
I don't
San
either.
Francisco had to sit there. San Francisco, who said they were better than us. They got to the Super Bowl. They got their asses whooped by.
uh-huh.
Yep. And then
Y'all
we
came
go
out
out.
with the black funeral jerseys and
That's right.
buried us last year. And
Right.
then y'all forgot that
Yep.
Karma's a bitch.
That's
and
right.
you guys got bit.
Yeah,
this
Karma,
year.
Karma has receipts. And,
Oh, yeah.
and it cashed the receipts this year. I would love to have
Yeah,
been
buddy.
sitting in one of those San Francisco players' living room watching him watch this game, because it was like, yeah, there's no doubt you guys are not on our level. You're a
And,
good team, but you are not on our level.
and to keep something in mind, Christian McCaffrey and Debo Samuels have already vocalized. that
Yeah, well,
they are
Debo
not
wants
happy.
out.
Yeah.
Debo's already asked for a trade.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Kristen's unfortunately for Christian, he's damaged goods.
yep.
Yeah.
He's run his course. But
They
Frank-
had their shot with him and they blew it.
yeah, they had their window, as you would
And
say.
they blew it.
Frank.
Guess where they blew it? Right here in Philadelphia. That's where they blew their shot. That was
Yes.
the best team they had.
Yes,
That was the
sir.
best team they
And
had.
you know what, Frank?
slapped them back.
They shot their shot in the regular season.
Yeah,
The Eagles shot their shot in the Super
playoffs.
Bowl.
yeah.
And that is the big difference. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. Jalen Hurts, all he does is win. All he
Yeah.
does is know how to rise to the moment. And like I said last week, and I'll say it again, Kansas City, we came for what was ours. You had no choice
Yeah.
but to give it back. And guess what? Next year, you're pissed off, you're angry. Good. Come get it.
They can't close the gap on this team that fast. There's too many holes for them to fill.
Come get it. So for Frank Finnigan, thank you once again. For James Scorsese, who might be leaving for ESPN by the next weekend.
I ain't going anywhere.
I'm Joe Marks. This is the Pattison Ave Sports Show. We are champions.
Yes. Yes. See you
All right,
guys next
guys.
week.
Yeah, man.